So when you come from an angle where as a country you have been colonized before and you are now independent, and for you to achieve your independence, you had to go through a liberation war, which was a conflict. It's something where we have said you can't put it as a kind of a militaristic way of dealing with things, but to get our freedom, we had to fight. So there is that political culture in terms of environment where for you to get a position, sometimes you think you really have to fight. So the fight might not be as militaristic as gross in terms of your South Sudan or Sudan context where there are really guns, but it can be verbal. It can be in the domestic space where it's a spouse fighting with another spouse. It can be with colleagues at a certain workplace. But it's that wiring where the deconstruction or the unlearning of the use of force or the use of fighting to get something haven't been what we have dealt with as a country.
The Constitution does acknowledge, the rights of liberation war heroes. But in terms of broader civil society, I think we have traditionally viewed war veterans as part of the problem and not part of the solution. So I believe there has to be a rethinking in terms of civil society engagement so that we also see them, the war veterans, as part of the solution. What is the role of the liberation war heroes in terms of nation building, peace building?
The democratic tradition is what brought what we fought for. There was no democratic tradition before we fought. So, and the fact that we fought voluntarily with our lives, bonding new relationships with other voluntary players from every part of the country, and then organizing the whole population of this country to identify with a certain cause which could defeat a foreign enemy. It means that the democratic ethos was already embedded in our approach to the building of the new nation. Those who try to create the impression that the war veterans move and are not democratic, they are simply off the point. That's not true. And those who would want to bring their democratic traditions from outside, they should first of all acknowledge this reality that we created the conditions for democracy in this country.
And the brutality that was carried out during the period of liberation plays a role in the mindset of a person. And that alone needs people who demystifies that. Who are these people who demystifies that a person transforms? The idea is that there is need for coexistence between the security sector and the civilian, which is the general public. But it becomes very difficult if the public continues to exist in a fear.
The avenues were opened through targeting the history of the country, that we needed history that is well balanced, and also the decision to engage government to review the history curriculum of the country, educational curriculum of history. And government agreed that something has to be done and the proper history for the country must be rewritten. Civil society and the general population at large are more than willing to correct their past in order to identify the better future. They insist that they cannot live in the past forever. We need to find some kind of closure so that we're able to move forward. And we can only do so understanding our history, where the wrongs took place, and what we can do from those wrongs. The resources that the country has are a discovery of the past, which the present and the future generation must inherit.
So the aspirations of the people back in 1980 are still not realized, and they're now further away. So people want to come back to tackle issues of livelihoods. And you know, when you're talking about the security sector, it's not just about the securocrats. We're thinking about the right of people to water, to roads, to electricity, to food. We're thinking about the economic rights, social rights, cultural rights. And when you've got a situation like the one I've painted, all those things just disappear. So from an affirmative action group, you're trying to rebuild and make arguments about how you can strengthen your communities, how you can strengthen those vulnerable groups, how you can create space for the indigenous people to begin to be part of the mainstream economy. This is what brings me in contact with Jerry and Nyasha. When I see them talking about a program which in my view is very broad and wide and is tackling very serious and important issues. Remember, politics is at the center of all this. For instance, one of the very first meetings I attended at the invitation of Jeremy and Nyasha was where we were looking at border control. Border control is extremely important because it facilitates free human movement, free, shall we say, business movement, as it were, transactions across the borders and so on. But if you're not well structured, if the systems are very opaque and unclear, if there's no oversight, a lot of things can just go wrong. The delays, the bureaucracy, the corruption, the whatever. So we're trying to find the most effective way to ensure that people are able to move their wares and their goods from wherever they've got them. If they are selling them here, if they are selling them the other side, this should happen in a very, very free, efficient environment. But this would not happen.
The Zimbabwe Peace and Security Program is also about reconciliation, is about reconciling different entities that were historically rendered hostile to each other, and in the process weakening the foundations of the state. Now, if you are going to get these different entities to focus in strengthening the program, in strengthening various operations, you are slowly but surely and incrementally building towards a reconciled state.